I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. On Saturday, Texas Senator Ted Cruz joined Ohio Republican Senate candidate Josh Mandel on the stump. Mandel, a former state treasurer, is locked in a fierce Republican primary with J.D. Vance. Vance has been endorsed by former President Trump, firebrand Congress members Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Missouri Senator Josh Hawley. Cruz, who has expressed interest in a 2024 presidential run, is breaking with Trump on his endorsement. Midterm election stumping is a key action of politicians testing the waters for future presidential efforts, a strategy pioneered by Richard Nixon in 1966. Cruz spent his time not only talking up Mandel, but assailing President Biden, mask mandates on airplanes, and more red meat conservative lines. Here's more from the Texas senator.
God bless the great state of Ohio. What a blessing to be here this morning. We're in church on Saturday morning. And we're here for a reason. I'm here today with a word of hope, a word of encouragement, a word of exhortation. I've got two very simple messages. Number one, America is in crisis. We all know this. Everyone knows this. What's happening in Washington, this isn't normal. Look, we have a president of the United States who shakes hands with nobody there. By the way, actually, I have a theory on that. That was Harvey. You know, if you look at this White House, they've managed to get everything wrong. That's actually hard to do. I mean, you would think just by dumb luck, some policy would have come out right. Like if they'd literally thrown darts at a wall, something would have landed on the right answer. But to run the table, inflation's galloping across the country. The cost of everything is going up. Cost of food, cost of electricity, cost of health care, cost of lumber, cost of homes, cost of a car. Heck, it's gotten so bad Antifa can't afford bricks. And of course, the cost of gasoline. When you go fill up your truck and it's $100 to do it, or when mom goes to fill up the minivan and it's $150 to do it. You know, it's been amazing watching the Biden White House try to explain this. They've had no fewer than 5 separate lies on inflation. Their first lie was they said it's not happening. There is no inflation. No reputable economist would tell you there's any inflation. They just told everyone, don't believe your lying eyes. The prices aren't going up. These aren't the droids you're looking for. Well, that didn't last very long. So they went to lie number 2. Lie number 2 is they said it's transitory. Yes, it's happening, but it's transitory. It's just going to be here for a minute. Just blink and it'll be gone. Well, we blinked and it didn't go away. So then they came to lie number 3. Lie number 3 was it's happening. It's not transitory, but it's a high-class problem. I don't know what that one means. But that was Ron Klain, that was White House Chief of Staff, said, it is a high-class problem. You must be a rich guy if inflation is impacting you. Then they went to number 4. Number 4 was, okay, it's happening. It's not transitory. It's not a high-class problem. But number 4 was, they said, it's a good thing. It is a sign of how gosh darn diddly well the economy's doing. Well, holy cow, we can't wait till we have $10 gasoline. Won't things be amazing then? And then finally, they've settled on lie number 5. Lie number 5 is Putin Putin. Which, by the way, I will commend the Democrats for message discipline. Every Democrat, from the county dog catcher to the most powerful Democrat in the world, Joe Biden's handler. All of them are using the identical talking points. But I'll tell you, I have an amazing degree of faith in the American people. We're not morons. Or don't. You know, one of the best illustrations of the wisdom of the American people are the little stickers that are popping up on gas pumps of Joe Biden. I did this. Because it was deliberate, it's what they wanted to do, and it is hurting Americans across the country, and it's hurting men and women across the state of Ohio. You look at the economy, we just got the GDP numbers. The economy's shrinking. In COVID, has there ever been a greater opportunity to reveal the petty tyrants that we have in office than this pandemic? You've got these imbeciles who shut down everything, who shut down businesses, who shut down restaurants, who shut down bars, who shut down stores, who shut down churches. Because, you know, if you go out on the street and burn an American flag and chant Black Lives Matter, it's perfectly safe. But if you come in here and you sing Amazing Grace, everyone's going to die. And maybe the most indefensible of all, they shut down schools all over this country. You know, we were told 2 weeks to stop the spread. And that 2 weeks became months, became tens of millions of kids had their schools shut down for over a year. We're going to look back on this in 10, 20 years and ask, what was the collective insanity that came over this country? Because those kids are going to be held back the rest of their lives. Because of these Democrats that don't give a flip about shutting down schools. And by the way, the kids that were hurt the most were low-income kids. Listen, Heidi and I, our girls are 11 and 14. When we had schools shut down, Heidi and I homeschooled them together. I took the 11-year-old. Heidi had the harder job. She took the 14-year-old. We had the two of us in two different rooms on two computers trying to go through, and it was hard for us. I can't imagine what a single mom had to do. If you're a single mom with 2, 3 kids, trying to work a job, trying to put food on the table, what happened for a lot of those kids is they just ended up not going to school. It was just impossible. And has anything illustrated the idiocy of the totalitarian left more than mask politics? This thing is the most absurd theater. And look, the important thing to understand is that everyone knew it was garbage. The rules on their face made no sense. All right, let's think about them. What were the rules? Remember, when you went into a restaurant, you must wear a mask until you sit down. Then you can take the mask off. This is because of science. Now, I have a theory on this, which is that the virus reacts to altitude. At 3 feet, the virus is completely safe, no danger whatsoever. At 6 feet, everyone's going to die. By the way, that explains why Fauci was safe. He's only 5 feet tall. Or how about on airplanes? By the way, I flew up yesterday from Texas with no mask, and I was free at last. But the rule on airplanes used to be you must wear a mask. It's safety. Unless you have a peanut. And if you have one peanut in your hand, no mask. Because peanuts cure COVID. Now, we've got reporters in the back, so I can see them now writing, oh, look at this misinformation. He's saying peanuts cure COVID. No, I'm not. I'm saying this is all garbage, and everyone knows it. And by the way, what was the rule? If you put your peanut down, put your mask on. Everyone's going to die. Unless you have a Diet Coke. Because a Diet Coke, just like a peanut, everyone knows. Look, I have the great joy of serving in the Senate with 50 Democrat senators. And all of them know this is garbage. Months ago, we'd be in meetings, we'd be sitting in a room, they'd close the door. Democrats have their masks off, they're laughing, they're hugging. They step outside and they see a TV camera. Oh my goodness, oh. Again, this is science. And I have a theory. The virus interacts with TV lenses. It's a very subtle molecular interaction. But when a TV lens is in the room, the virus is really dangerous. Look, people are fed up. You look at crime. Crime is skyrocketing across the country. Murder rates are skyrocketing across the country. Carjacking rates are skyrocketing across the country. And after years of Democrats demonizing cops, vilifying cops, arguing for defunding the police, abolishing the police, supporting Soros prosecutors who let violent criminals go over and over and over again. This is nuts. And let me tell you, in the United States of America and here in the great state of Ohio, we support the heroes, the men and women of blue in law enforcement that keep us safe. You look at the chaos of our southern border. 2 million people crossing illegally, the worst illegal immigration in 61 years. And this is deliberate. This is a political choice. 2 million illegal immigrants. No, wait. I'm sorry, I didn't use the politically correct term. 2 million undocumented Democrats. And you know, as bad as the domestic policy and the economic policy has been, the foreign policy has been even worse. Every single region on earth has gotten worse. Every enemy of America is stronger. You had the absolute disaster, the disgrace of the surrender to the Taliban, leaving Americans behind, the incompetence of these clowns. China is stronger. Iran is stronger. Venezuela is stronger. Russia is stronger. We had the first land war in Europe since 1945. Nice job, Joe. Now, some of y'all are thinking, you know, Ted, you said you were here with a word of encouragement. You're really bad at this. But I told you I had two things to say this morning. Here's the second. Revival is coming. And I believe that with all my heart, that all over this country, all over the state of Ohio, people's eyes are opening up. They are waking up. They realize this is nuts. And we want to get back to the land of sanity. You know, you look at the history of American politics, it's always been a natural pendulum. One party gets in power, they go too far one direction, the American people say, hold on a second, bring that on back. The other party gets in power, they go too far the other direction, the American people do the same thing, say, hold on a second. I have to admit, every time Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi do some idiotic thing, part of me grieves, but part of me quietly celebrates. Because the worse it is, the more they are accelerating the country coming back. And I'm here to tell you, November isn't just going to be a wave. It's going to be a tidal wave. It's going to be a tsunami. People's eyes are opening up powerfully. If you look across the country right now, young people are moving Republican. Hispanics are moving Republican. African Americans are moving Republican. Suburban women are moving Republican. And working class men and women are running, not walking, on the Republican side. We're here in Toledo, the heart of working America. You know, I was talking with the reporters this morning about what I think is the most important political change that has happened in the last decade. It used to be conventional wisdom that Republicans are the party of the rich and Democrats are the party of the working class. Well, that whole scheme has flipped on its head. Today, the Republican Party is a blue-collar party. Today, the Republican Party is the party of truck drivers and steel workers and cops and firefighters and waiters and waitresses and the men and women with calluses on their hand who wake up every morning and want to go to work. And the Democrat Party is the party of rich coastal elites who look down on union members here in Toledo, Ohio. And their answer to them, John Kerry's answer to union members in Ohio, is learn to code. Well, go jump in a lake, you pompous jerk. What's happening is powerful. People are waking up. Their eyes are opening. You know, there's an old story of a guy driving down a country road. He sees a little boy by the side of the road with a box and a sign, and the sign says, "Free kittens. They're Democrats." And he thinks, well, gosh, that's pretty strange, but he just keeps on driving. A couple days later, he's driving along the same road, same kid, same box, but a different sign. This time the sign says, "Free kittens. They're Republicans." And this just kind of bothers him. He pulls aside. He said, "Son, I'm sorry, I had to pull over and ask. I drove by here a couple of days ago. You had a different sign. You said they were Democrats. Now you say they're Republicans. What gives?" Kid looks at him and goes, "Well, mister, now their eyes are open." That's happening all over the country. And it's powerful. All right, let me tell you a story. Heidi and I are members of First Baptist Church in Houston. Some years back, the mayor of Houston issued a subpoena to 5 pastors in the city of Houston, demanding that they hand over their sermon notes. They were preaching on the Bible's teaching on sexuality, and the mayor didn't like it. And she demanded, hand over your sermon notes so the city can examine them. So I called my pastor, Greg Mott, and I said, Pastor, have you seen what's happened with this subpoena? And he said, oh yeah, I've seen it. I've been praying about it all morning. And I said, well, I want to organize a rally. I want to bring pastors together across the city of Houston to stand against this. And I said, what I wanted to ask you is, would you be willing to host that rally at the church? And I said, I'd like to host it tomorrow, Thursday, at 11 a.m. And my pastor begins laughing. And he says, Ted, you know, God works in amazing ways. The Word tells us He has ordered our steps long before we began. He said, a month ago, God laid on my heart that we needed to pray for our city. He said, a month ago, I sent out an invite to pastors across the city to come together to pray for our city. He said, I've got 50 pastors coming to the church tomorrow, Thursday, at 10 a.m. And we both just kind of shook our head and said, wow. All right, so the next day I showed up, joined the pastors. We spent an hour on our knees in prayer. And then we went down to a rally, had a press conference. We had pastors across the city, across the denominations, across the races. Heck, we even had First Baptist and Second Baptist. And that ain't easy. And we stood up together and we said, Caesar has no jurisdiction over the pulpit. And when you subpoena one pastor, you subpoena every pastor. And we stood together and we shined the light on what was happening. And within hours, the city of Houston rescinded the subpoenas. That is happening across the country. Look, I am here in Ohio today because Ohio is in the battleground for control of the Senate and control of the House. And I'm here today supporting my friend, Josh Mandel. Now, state of Ohio is a swing state. It's been a long time a swing state. The state of Ohio is one of the very few states that has a Republican senator and Sherrod Brown. We're going to win this seat in November. And when we do, Ohio is going to retire Chuck Schumer as majority leader. But let me tell you why I'm supporting Josh. Here's my philosophy in supporting candidates. I look for the most conservative candidate who can win. Now, who can win is important. The objective is to save the country. So I'm not interested in tilting at windmills. If you can't win the race, we don't have time for that. We know Josh can win. He's been elected statewide in Ohio twice. He makes the Democrats cry. She did that right on cue as I asked her to. But in terms of who's the most conservative, have you noticed that every Republican in the primaries beats their chests and tells you they're the most conservative soul who's ever lived? They all say how conservative they are. They all say, I love Donald Trump. No, I love Donald Trump more. No, I have Donald Trump tattooed on my rear end. Like they fall over and over and over themselves. Just once, I'd like to see a Republican candidate stand up in the primary and say, I am an establishment moderate squish. I stand for nothing whatsoever. Like, that would be refreshing honesty. But they don't do that. So I'll tell you my view is I actually don't really pay attention to what the candidates say, because all of them can read talking points. I'm interested in what they do and what their record is. Years ago, I worked for John Ashcroft when he was Attorney General. And he used to say, if I'm ever accused of being a Christian, I'd like for there to be enough evidence to convict me. Now, that is powerfully, powerfully true, but it's equally true of being a conservative. That if you're really a conservative, you will have been in the foxholes. You will have been in the trenches, and you will have the scars. You will bear the stripes from being in the fight. The reason I'm supporting Josh Mandel is of all the candidates in the race, he has the strongest record of standing and fighting for conservative principles, fighting to stop the expansion of Obamacare, fighting to defend the right to life, fighting to rein in out-of-control spending, fighting to ensure transparency, fighting to take on the swamp that corrupts politics. And we've seen too many times candidates who make promises on the stump and then they go to Washington and they get sucked in. The lobbyists put their arms around them and they get sucked into the corruption. And I got to tell you, look, I think we're going to win in November, but when we win in November, we're not done. Once we win, next year, when we have majorities, we got to do something with them. And so I'm here today. And by the way, look, as much as I love you, it's tough to be here today. My girls are at home. Catherine, the 11-year-old, is in her softball tournament last night. She won her game last night. I talked to her as we were driving out of the event. They were up 11-8, bases loaded, deep pop fly to left field, and Catherine caught it to end the inning and win the game. She said her coach said they hit that ball so high it hit the moon. And look, it is tough. I got to FaceTime her and congratulate her, but I wasn't there. But the reason I wasn't there is because what we're fighting about right here and right now is her future. And it matters. And I'll tell you, in the Senate, one or two principled conservatives can change the entire place. It makes a difference. We need reinforcements. All right, two things to wrap up. You know, in January, I'm looking forward to walking down the hallways of the Capitol alongside Josh. And we're going to bump in to a little man wearing overalls, carrying a screwdriver, coming to change the sign on Nancy Pelosi's door. And Nancy's gonna get on her broom. No, wait, that's not right. That's not right. Nancy's gonna get on her private jet, the USS Broom, and fly back to California. And then she's gonna retire to Florida. And we're going to send Chuck Schumer back to New York. And then we're going to tell Joe Biden it's 2025, and he'll just wander back to Delaware. I want to secondly share a story. It's actually a story my father tells. My dad is a pastor. Many of you may know him. It's a story he tells about salvation, but it has powerful applicability to saving our country as well. It's a story about a tightrope walker who sets up a tightrope across a gigantic waterfall. The crowd gathers to see him. Tightrope walker asks the crowd, says, "How many of you believe I can walk across this tightrope and back?" And everyone cheers. And he does it. He then brings out a wheelbarrow. He says, "How many of you believe I can walk across this tightrope and back pushing a wheelbarrow?" Crowd cheers. He does it. He says, "How many of you believe I can walk across this tightrope and back with 2 100-pound bags of sand in the wheelbarrow?" Crowd cheers. And he does it. He says, "How many of you believe I can walk across this tightrope and back with a man in the wheelbarrow?" Crowd cheers. And he turns to a man in the front row and he says, "Get in the wheelbarrow." And when you talk about what it means to believe, whether we're talking salvation or we're talking saving our country, belief is not a quiet little golf clap. Belief is putting everything you have into it, is putting your heart, body, and soul. Belief is getting in the wheelbarrow. We're blessed. We're blessed for many, many reasons. We're blessed to be Americans. But we are blessed to live at a time when the stakes are high. We're not fighting over little things. We're not fighting over things that don't matter. We are fighting over whether or not the greatest nation in the history of the world continues to survive and prosper, or whether our nation falls. And it is not written in stone that America can only rise. It is incumbent on us to save this country. The primary election is Tuesday. A liberal reporter asked Josh right before this gathering, "Hey, you're asking people to vote and even to early vote. Isn't it hypocritical, since you're concerned about voter fraud, to ask Republicans to vote early for you?" I couldn't help but point out to her, no, actually what I'd like to see, Democrats need to vote late. They need to show up on Wednesday. That's a great time for the Democrats to get there. But I want to ask every one of you on Tuesday, vote for Josh Mandel 10 times. Now look, we're not Democrats. I'm not urging voter fraud. The reporters are in the back writing it down. Oh, okay, I've got this. He's advocating a felony in a church while kicking a puppy. Okay, you've got the front page of the paper tomorrow. No, I'm not advocating voter fraud. I did say peanuts cure COVID. That actually is a quote they could use. If you show up Tuesday, and between now and Tuesday you pick up the phone and you call 9 other people that wouldn't show up and vote. You call your sister. You text your dad. You email your coworker and say, hey, this election really matters. Hey, this insanity in Washington has to stop. Come out and vote for Josh Mandel. And if you get 9 other people to vote on Tuesday, you've just voted 10 times. And I'm here to tell you, we're going to win. Look, some of y'all here are old enough to remember the 1970s. Well, none of the women. But some of the men were old enough to remember the 1970s. It took Jimmy Carter to give us Ronald Reagan. Right now today in Georgia, Jimmy Carter is going, yes, not worst president ever. And Joe Biden, who, by the way, we ought to name Republican of the Year because he's going to elect more Republicans than anybody in the history of the country. Joe Biden is ushering in a revolution in this country of strong conservative leaders who will defend this nation, who will defend jobs, who will defend the Constitution, who will defend the Bill of Rights, and Ohio is front and center in saving the United States of America. God bless you.
Ladies and gents, we